Hey guys, Otto back again with another video. So starting a company as an older guy is nearly impossible. Okay, you will be facing challenges right now that the younger generation simply aren't. And in this video, what I'm going to do is give you 3 specific things that you must do in order to overcome these challenges. And if you don't, you simply won't be successful. Okay, so here's the problem. By proxy of being older, by being on this spinning planet that we call Earth for more years than those younger guys have, you have been exposed to life experiences and precisely failures that have led you to a point now where you are probably battling constant tiredness and fatigue. You're perhaps becoming more and more jaded the older you get, and you are simply losing hope, okay? You lack hope. And this is because past failures have basically gotten you down. You've lost self-esteem, and although you might have a dream and you might be a big believer, you don't have the energy to see it through. Okay. Now, even if you do have the energy, society has programmed you for longer than the younger guys, which means you've grown conditioned to the conventional lies that we have been told since the day we were born. Okay, so without going into the whole matrix is against you type of rhetoric here, it's important to know that just by being older, there's a lot of unlearning and relearning and deprogramming that you have to go through that the younger guys don't, okay, or will find it easier to overcome, all right? And worse yet, you are probably sitting there thinking that everything is a scam. You probably think social media is a scam. You probably think university is a scam. You probably think working for a boss is a scam. You just probably think everything is a scam and that everybody else has had greater opportunities than you, okay? And I'm going to show you now specifically using a couple of very interesting studies and by leveraging a couple of principles that relate to human psychology in general, I'm going to show you how you can overcome these, all right? So here's what you need to do to solve this type of thinking, all right? And the first one is that you need to realize that your age can be leveraged as a strategic advantage, okay? So you have something that the younger guys do not, okay? So young versus old. And I say old in terms of you not being a 14-year-old spotty teenager in your mum's basement, okay? You're older than that, 25, 31, whatever age you might be watching this, all right? And one thing you need to realize is that by proxy of being older, you automatically command more trust, okay? So there was a study I was looking at the other day in one of the online business journals, and it was showing that I think it was 74% of consumers, so the average day-to-day person, will trust and will buy from a company that's led by an older person versus a company led by a younger person, okay? So you might not think that it matters, but data like this shows that empirically and objectively it does. Now, that is the norm, that is the rule, it's not the exception, okay? So of course you can have a very successful company at 18 and you can build a load of trust. You can also be 80 and garner no trust at all, okay? But in general, being older will allow you to leverage trust immediately from the off, okay, which is one of the absolute core kind of linchpins of actually being able to close clients and get customers, okay? If they don't trust you, they're not going to buy from you, all right? The second one here is about diversity, all right? And now this isn't diversity in the sense of DEI, okay, and wokeness, right? But what diversity in this context relates to is that by proxy of being older and having more hours and years that you've been alive on this, spinning planet we call Earth, you will have gone through experiences that these younger guys haven't, okay? So whether you have traveled or eaten different food or spoken different languages or been in different relationships or been married or not married or married 3 times or not married 3 times, whatever it might be, look at the experience that you've built to date and see how you can transfer those skills to your company, okay? So you might not think that, learning Japanese to level 1 or conversational comprehension is not, really valuable to your marketing agency. But one thing that diversity and things like that will do is enable you to find other veins of gold in your business that other people who don't have those experiences can't do, okay? So that might mean in that case, you could go after Japanese clients or those industries or marketplaces, all right? So look at your experiences and don't look at them as time that you wasted. Look at how you can actually leverage those skills and apply them to your business, all right? Now the third one here, before we get into the meat of the bone, is your network. So very quickly, everybody nowadays, especially the younger guys, are obsessed with automating and scaling, all right? And they're obsessed to the point that they will want to automate a business before they've even made money from the business, all right? So one thing that you should do is totally avoid that, okay? So when you're starting out, maybe you're watching this, you want to launch an agency or you want to launch a consulting business, whatever it might be. Instead of thinking, I'm going to spend the next 6 to 12 months automating and systemizing and creating all of these SOPs and creating an operationally brilliant business without actually generating any money and closing any clients, switch your thinking, look internally, look at the people that you've built relationships and that you've connected with over the last however many years it might be. You know, if you're 27 or 37, the last 10 years, 20 years, whatever it might be. Look at who you've got in your network and go to them directly. So it might be that you go to them directly to, run ideas past them, or ideally it'll be people in your network that you actually pitch, okay? And you will close these guys a hell of a lot quicker. You will collect cash from them a hell of a lot quicker than you will do if you try and copy all of these hacks that the young guys are purporting that they're doing, okay? So mindset stuff is very important to learn first, okay? So young versus old, trust, diversity, and your network, all right? So let's move on very, very quickly to the meat of the bone here, all right? Now, because you are older, you have undergone a longer period of programming, societal programming that these younger guys haven't, okay? And whether you are a conspiracy theorist or not, it's undebatable, the fact that you have been on this planet for longer than they have, and therefore you've been exposed to more marketing messaging and more kind of public social discourse and pressure than these guys have, okay? So whether that's through or from the government, from your teachers at school, from your boss at the workplace, your parents, whatever it might be, you will have basically gone through a longer period of time of having that programming drummed into you. And that programming is probably programming that has helped you get to this point as a successful employee, if you're watching this in an employed role, okay? And the issue here, without going into the whole matrix is against you kind of rhetoric, the issue here is that the programming that you've gone through as an employee is diametrically opposed, diametrically opposed to the mindset that you have to have as an entrepreneur, okay? So there's a couple of key elements of this that I want to pick out that are going to help you once you get the insight around them. It's going to help you change, okay? So studies wise, now in the entrepreneurial space and in the agency space, we hear the buzz term mindset all the time, okay? And it's what a lot of the online gurus talk about. You know, if you don't get your mindset right, then you're never going to be successful. And it's very easily something I've done indeed in the past. It's very easy to skim over it and put it to one side and think, no, I want tangible, empirical, objective hacks to actually grow my business. I don't want to do all that mindset rubbish, okay? But without the right type of mindset, there's no way you can build resilience. And resilience is one of the key, core, fundamental, foundation pieces behind any successful entrepreneur, okay? If you are able to be resilient and, withstand ups and downs and failures and all the challenges of business and life, that's what's going to get you to the point of being successful, okay? Over everything else. All right, so there is a scientist called Carol Dweck, okay? And I think it was in 2007, she did a study at Stanford on Stanford students where she basically taught them two types of mindsets and how to basically deploy those mindsets. And the first one was a growth mindset, which you would have heard about. And the second one was a fixed mindset, okay? These are very self-explanatory, okay? So a fixed mindset is a mindset obviously where you are rigid, you're dogmatic, and you're unwilling to change your thoughts, beliefs, patterns, and perceptions of the world. Growth mindset is the polar opposite, okay? So you're open to new strategies, ways of learning, outcomes, opportunities, and things like that. And interestingly enough, I'm not going to go into the study details, you can see it online. Interestingly enough, what Dweck found was that individuals who deployed the growth mindset actually got 30% higher results in their exams at Stanford, okay? So one thing to put to yourself is, very, very simply, are you operating right now in your current context of life with a fixed or a growth mindset, okay? And if you are seeing yourself as being very fixed, rigid, and dogmatic in how you see the world, now's the time, and you should do it very quickly because you are older, to start adopting more of a growth mindset, okay? You need to realize that opportunities are boundless, that cash flow is endless, that money is not limited, in order to actually go into launching a business and scaling it successfully, all right? A growth mindset alongside how you perceive your failures is really the key to overcoming this, okay, and to deprogramming the current mental models that you have. Okay, now I think it was in the American Psychological Association journal, but it was saying that basically, I think it was 60 to 70% of entrepreneurs attribute their perception of failure as being one of the key contributors to their success, okay? So the ones that see failures as an opportunity to learn and something that actually made them better were the ones that achieved more in business, okay? So 60% of those who are actually successful have a mindset like that, versus those guys who see failures as something that is critical, that is terminal, life-ending, business-ending, okay? You have to shift all of those past failures that you see yourself as having experienced in the past. You actually have to see those as being something positive, okay? And if you don't feel it or believe it, you have to brick wall, you have to stonewall your thought pattern and your mental loops, and you have to say to yourself, I learned from it, it was a benefit. You know, if I hadn't failed at that, I wouldn't be where I am now, okay? If I hadn't failed or got fired from that job, I wouldn't be watching this video trying to do everything I can to become a better person and launch a successful business, okay? Now, the third study here is really, really interesting, and it's by a guy. I'm going to encroach here, actually. I'm going to go here, all right? Ebbinghaus. And what Ebbinghaus found was that learning is one thing, learning is important, but without application, okay, so without physically and tangibly applying what you've learned, you simply won't retain knowledge and information, okay? So what Ebbinghaus found was that information that was learned and not applied, 56% of that was forgotten in 1 hour. Okay, so you might be watching this video learning a whole new load of information. You might be on a bit of a run. You might be doom scrolling late at night in bed, whatever it might be, learning more and more and more, consuming more information. But if you don't reinforce that learning, repeat it or practice repeating it, and if you don't apply it, within 1 hour, you're actually going to have forgotten the majority of that information. Okay, so 56%. Now, after 1 day, that becomes 66%. Okay, so if you don't physically apply the knowledge in 1 hour, 56% of it's going to be lost. In 1 day, 66% is going to be lost. Okay, now after 6 days, a whopping 75% is going to be lost. Okay, so what this study by Ebbinghaus does and shows is basically a forgetting curve. Okay, so as time goes on, without repetition and without reinforcement and application, you will practically forget all of the information that you've actually learned. Okay, so if you're in a phase right now where you're slightly older, you do not have the time, you cannot afford to just perpetually learn and learn and learn and learn and learn without applying it. Okay, so chances are you are at the age now where you have all the information you need to do something. You're simply not taking action. Okay, and again, we hear that as a buzz term and, you know, a piece of jargon in this space, but you have to do something. Okay, and by doing something, you're going to learn on the job, and by proxy of doing it and iterating on it and optimizing it and redoing it, you're going to be reinforcing it and applying it. So you're actually going to let that information resonate. Okay, your knowledge is going to increase through doing. Okay, it's not going to come from just learning the theory. All right, so finally, and I've encroached on the scam space here. Okay, now there's a couple of reasons why you probably perceive everything as being a scam and probably perceive everything being out of your reach. Okay, so maybe it's 10K a month, maybe it's 36K a month, maybe it's 100K a month, whatever it might be, maybe it's 500K a month. Whatever it might be, because of your age, and again, this isn't due necessarily to problems that you have created for yourself, it's because of the world we live in, all right? You've basically learned that whatever you do won't garnish results, okay? Now, this comes down to a phenomenon called learned helplessness. And when I studied, I went to university, I didn't drop out of high school. When I did my master's degree in psychology, we actually relearned, we'd learnt it prior to that, but we went over Seligman's study on learned helplessness. And I'm going to move over here. What Seligman did, and it's pretty unethical and wouldn't get ethical approval now, is that I think he started with rats and then he used dogs, which is terrible. But he put a floor plate down on the ground that had the capability to send electric shocks through it. So anything that was on that floor plate would get an electric shock on its feet. And he set up a dividing wall with 2 compartments, and he put the rat or the dog in one side and basically shocked the floor, okay? And every time he shocked the floor, the animal naturally jumped up and tried to find a way to escape it. But because of the divider, the partition, the animal couldn't escape it, okay? And through time, through just constantly shocking the animal, again, horribly torturous and unethical. What this was, when was this? In the late 60s, okay, so times have changed, obviously. What Seligman found was that when he removed the partition here, so when he removed the partition and put the animal in that same compartment and continued to shock them, although they had the capability to jump over to the other side where they wouldn't get the shocks, where they would be in perceived safety, the animals basically lay down. They chose not to do anything to actually avoid that pain, okay? And what this directly relates to is you in your situation now. So you have gone through experiences in your life where you have basically learnt that the only response you have that's a viable response is one of helplessness, that there's nothing you can do, okay? So however many times you've been shocked on the feet or kicked in the nuts proverbially or failed, you've realised that you can't do anything to help yourself. And that is a realization that is a mistruth, okay? So this study by Seligman shows the power of that these animals literally had a choice. They could easily jump into the other compartment and avoid all that pain and suffering. But because they had experienced so much suffering in the past, their past mental models and how they perceived the past was directly stopping their ability to actually improve their life and avoid pain, okay? So if you're in this position, if you're sitting there thinking, woe is me, wherever I live, I run into these problems. Whatever it is, whatever business I do, I can't get clients, I can't get customers, I don't get paid, clients are rubbish, they difficult to deal with, whatever it might be, all these failures and pain points that you've come up against. If you are talking to yourself like that, you have to stop, okay? And if you're older, which you are watching this video, you don't have time to mess around with this. You have to stop now, okay? The second point here, whiteboard almost went down, that I want to talk about on the scam point is about social comparison, okay? I'm running out of space here and I'm going to wrap up this video very, very quickly in the next few minutes, all right? Now, I was listening to the All In podcast and Chamath Palihapitiya was talking about, this is a guy that was one of the earliest employees and I think investors in Facebook. He's worth multi billions of dollars. And he was talking about the fact that even he, at his kind of level of financial freedom and security and success, even he is subject to the comparison trap and the fact that with the advent of social media, everybody thinks that their neighbours are living better than they actually are and better than them, okay? So you might be sat there, and you might even be trying to limit social media consumption, but it's very, very difficult to see what other people are putting out there as something that isn't 100% true, okay? And it's why I try to make these videos as raw and as factual as possible, and why I'm not interested in doing any sort of lifestyle or kind of wealth type of content. It's because everybody has their challenges and problems in life, all right? And what I want to do is actually give you tangible, physical hacks and strategies that you can use to improve your life and business, as opposed to, massaging my ego and your ego with entertainment, all right? But what Chamath was talking about was basically something that a guy called Festinger in 1954 to the early 50s found when he was studying social comparison. And basically what he was showing and found was that people will evaluate and set their own perceptions and abilities and opinions of their self by comparing those to other people. Okay, and the problem with social media is that you will be sitting there thinking, everybody else has got it easier. Everybody else is making more money. Everybody else is working on their business 10 minutes a week and I'm doing it 8 hours a day and I'm not as successful as they are. What you have to realize being older is that you arguably are suffering with this to a greater extent than the younger guys, okay? So you've experienced this more over time, and if you haven't done anything to plug that kind of, that hole when it comes to what you're being exposed to, you have to do that right now and you have to change, okay? And you have to realize that actually chances are your neighbor isn't living better than you are. Okay, maybe they might be more financially successful, they might be leasing a car, they might have a whopping interest-based mortgage, or whatever it might be, and you're renting, whatever it is that you're using as a mental model to trap you in this mindset, you have to change it, okay? And you have to realize that there's a huge amount of psychological and empirical data that shows how powerful these phenomena are, and that you have to do everything you can to actually break them, all right? So I hope this video has been useful, and in summary, just remember, okay, if you are slightly older and you're considering launching a business, or you're currently in the trenches, you're in the arena and you're trying to scale your company, leverage your age as a benefit, okay? So use what you can by proxy of being older that the other guys can't. Use that to your advantage. Use it and leverage it as a strategic play, okay? The second one is that you have to unlearn your current mental models. You have to relearn, but you have to reinforce and actually apply that knowledge. And then the third one is that you have to reframe your past, okay? So all of those failures that we've talked about in here, you have to see them as something that will ultimately lead you to success. And I always think about that guy who, you know, is in the tunnel and he's mining to get the big, oh God, that was meant to be a diamond. He's mining here, okay? And he's got the pickaxe and he's digging, and he gives up right at the last minute, okay? And if he had just carried on, if he had overcome all of these hurdles, all of that time, all of that strife and struggle and pain and heartache, and just continued that last amount, he would get to the successes and, you know, the fruits of his labor, okay? So like I say, guys, hopefully this video has helped. Rewatch it. Ask yourself the question of whether you are stuck in these mental loops. Change them. You do not have time, okay? So you might think that being 25, you know, it's an easy thing to talk about your dreams and everyone's receptive to it and it's admirable. When you get older, and the older you get, the more responsibility you get, and people's perceptions of you and what you're doing will change, okay? All of a sudden, the dream to start a business goes from something that's energetic and admirable and, you know, something that people recommend and encourage when you're 20, to something when you try and do it at 30, people think is, you know, lacking in responsibility, okay? And it's something that you shouldn't do. All right, so I'm going to come out with a few more videos this week, so keep an eye out for those. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you in the next one. All right, thanks guys, cheers.